We got mic-nya Miles di mana? Pasangin dong. They've got you with a yeah, so you've got that because you're going to be speaking on them. Yeah. Cek audio dulu masuk. Ya. Audionya masuk. Aman? Amannya? Itu belum menyala. Rekam dulu ya. Cek. Udah ya? Okay. Om Swastiastu again to everybody. It's a deep honor and pleasure to welcome you all to Ibah for this very, very special day, this special event, the distillation and culmination of, for me, many years of friendship, trials and tribulations, and I'm sure for Miles, something else, which he's going to tell you about. Once again, for everyone who joined us for the prayer, thank you. It was an honor to serve you at the temple and to offer these prayers for the greater good for ourselves and all sentient beings. Before I go ahead with any further words, I'd like to actually bring my father up, Tjok Gde Kerthyasa, as he has to go to, we have the last day of the Munyo, the Barongs going around Ubud today. So he'd like to say a few words on behalf of the family here.
It's a Tibetan gesture. Thank you for having us.
Guru. Yeah, silakan.
Thank you, Tjok Gde. It's very important when you asking me, otherwise not less. Even. So that's one of the ethic moralitas in Bali. You tell your parents whatever you doing it. Be blessed and be forgiven. So now today, especially for Mars, we're creating the book. So I wish you all, after you praying in the rain, you did all praying in the spring. It's two things different, doa and sembahyang. Doa is always asking to God. Sembahyang is offering the best to the Lord. Sembahyang mempersembahkan. Jadi today is the last day of the Galungan, which we call Kuningan, where is all the God from paradise, Indra and all is God and goddesses back to the paradise. That's why today we celebrate Kuningan with all the symbol of the
Shield.
We hang shield in every building in front of our gate. So we will be protected from the destructive forces, the negative energy forces. So we all will be then live harmoniously. And it's really connecting to the book that we're going to launch today, which is Elixir, written with Elixir. I think Elixir is an interesting word. It has so many meanings in terms of the originally come from Greek or Latin. So it can be a sweet for medicine to make it people get healthy. But in terms of spirituality, elixir is a force of power. In terms of in our belief, elixir is can create some wisdom in terms of you when you make a decision for your life. Wisdom is good for you and being useful for other people. That's wisdom. And also elixir means transformation. From disaster become harmonious in terms of in yourself, in the family, in the community. But when the result is not harmony, you have to check double the elixir. Maybe the transformation is the wrong way. So that's what my understanding according to the yoga book we have in Bali, which is a very powerful thing. Yeah, I don't know what it says. Our thing can create very strong energy and can create wisdom when you make decision in your life, and also transformation. This is the most important because that can be go to the wrong side according to your mind, because mind is the key of transformation. That's why in Bali we always mention about sabda bayu ida. It's the balance between your mind, your word, and your action. And what we call merta in Bali, we call amerta. Merta is physical food. Amerta is the spiritual food. Maybe that's closer the elixir mean in our term of meditation and yoga in Bali. So I all the best to Tjok Gde and the team for today and for your book in terms of return to elixir. Mile, you must be doing so much work for all that. So I hope this book can guide us all to create the harmony. Because nowadays the distraction is so many from different direction, from your all senses to especially from your mind. And we do need strong elixir individually, individual, to create harmony between you, yourself, with your family, with your friends, with your community, with your nature, and with your belief, God, whoever you believe in. So we all can be happy and healthy, wise, and wealthy. Thank you very much, and good luck for this evening.
Thank you.
Om Santi Santi.
Terima kasih. Terima kasih. Okay. Well, we have we're chasing the clock. I was going to do a really long speech, but I don't think I have time to do that. You could sing Dr. Miles Neale's praises from his clinical work as a psychotherapist, or maybe from the books that he's written. But I think I would sing it from the way he leads pilgrimage. And I think this book is, I'm humbled and honored to actually have my name in the book, although it's been changed from Tjok Gde to Wizard. Miles bridges worlds, cultures. We have a Tibetan Buddhist feeling today. We're honored to be observed by Vajrayogini, Tara, the Medicine Buddha, Saraswati, and Padmasambhava in the north. But I think to be a bridge between these cultures, Tibetan, Balinese, doesn't quite go the length. Miles talks about many, many cultures. He bridges East and West. He talks about the mystery schools. And the title Return with Elixir couldn't be more fitting. Without further ado, I'd like to call Dr. Miles Neale to the floor, and I'm going to hand it over to you, my friend.
Okay. Let me see if I can get through the night without crying. Okay. So tonight's the culmination of 5 years of journey. I get to celebrate it with you. One is my teacher, Geshe Tenzin Zobo, likes to say, nothing is coincidence. So the gathering of those of us in the room, there's no coincidence. You just do me a favor and just look to your left, look to your right, and introduce yourself. You've been on a long journey with the person next to you. You just haven't realized it yet. But there's a lot more in common between all of us than meets the eye. We're all on a long pilgrimage, is part of the thesis that I'm putting forward. Oh, there's Scott Bauer back there. I should probably start with a few thank yous. Okay. Let me start with my wife, Emily Wolf, where she probably taking care of kids. Oh, there she is. So Emily, you know, without Emily, nothing happens in our family. When it was time for me to come to Bali after a 6-week wonderland journey with Tjok Gde, you know, oh, there's my partner, Mateo. Welcome, Mateo. So this is a room full of wonderful people. Thank you all. You know, Emily makes worlds. She makes the mandala for our family. So thank you, Emily, for making the mandala over and over. Tjok Gde, I mean, how many of you experienced magic down in that bedji just about a half an hour ago? Anybody feel the magic of that place? Can I ask again? How many of you felt the magic of that place? Yeah, so several years ago, and I was on a discovery to find a new home and reboot my life, which I have a sneaky suspicion even the strangers in the room that I'm not acquainted with are on that precise journey. Looking for a new home, looking to reboot yourself, looking to reestablish yourself, looking to commit or re-up your offering in the world. It was a 6-week adventure that I spent with Tjok Gde, capped by experiences just like that. So in thanking Tjok Gde, I have to, of course, thank his family, the extended family, his mother, Asri, and his sister, Chok Maya, the whole team here at Ibah, which is perhaps the most exquisite space I've ever been in. Well, maybe not besides the Sun Valley, right? But there's something very special about this space, about the authenticity, about the lineage, about the ancestors and all that has been sacrificed to make such a home. So for me, it's a homecoming. I'm sure you feel that too. And so during this 6-week discovery period, it was moments of magic, like strung together like a mala bead. And you know, my dear friend Tjok and teacher opened the doors for me. Every day was an adventure. It was an adventure outward adventure. We would go to magical places. You know, at the time, Tjok Gde was cultivating a farm and a medicinal garden in Belulong. One day we went there with Maya and Phil and a few others. Yeah, it's just so natural. It's a return to our origins. It's unadorned. It's simple. It's pure. It's unadulterated. It could be timeless. It could be 100 years ago, it could be 500 years ago. There's a hearth burning. People are cutting wood. Tjok Gde's cultivating and procuring flowers, different kinds of flowers, some for medicine, some for tea, tinctures. We just finished a ceremony with a mountaintop temple, and then we would descend from the temple down to a spring. And there was no time on these adventures. It was just timeless. It's what they call mythic time. Mythic time operates in another dimension. It's more of a right brain. It's what the Aboriginals might call dream time. And for us that have been industrialized or over-industrialized, that is a elixir in itself. It's what we're missing. For as progressed as our industrial nations have become, we've abandoned something that's so quintessential to the human experience. Something that really speaks to the deep primal urge for unity, harmony, civility, tenderness, divinity. So you guys just had one little taste of it. For me, it was day in and day out for 6 weeks. And when we weren't exploring, Tjok Gde and I were having conversations. It was like remembering a long lost brother from another life. I mean, it was Jung and Steiner, and then it was Tantra from the Balinese and the Buddhist tradition. And then there was the personal stuff too, the personal healing that went on. Two fathers that, you know, in our own ways have our own regrets for how we've been living, how we've been relating to our spouses, how we've been relating to our kids. Yeah, we went through that. There was a lot of honesty and a lot of vulnerability in our conversations. But what we were really doing, which I want to share with you, which is part of the book, is we were going back in order to go forward. It became a very prominent theme in my writing. And as I was writing, I was living the elixir journey. This idea of going back in order to go forward is, in a way, it is what defines a pilgrimage. There are many ways of returning and going forward, of regressing in order to go forward. In fact, for example, in psychotherapy, what you're trying to set up in your clinical rapport with a client is then enough safety so that the client can regress. Regress into what? It's so they can regress to the place where they have an arrest in development, where the trauma is. So the hallmark of therapy is to create a sanctified environment that's based on trust and integrity and safety. So much so that someone can go back and recollect the fragments of their life. And that's what we were doing that whole time. I mean, broken people. We're all broken people. Life breaks us inevitably. And I think that's what we right away. I did one podcast with you, which you showed up late for.
I tried to avoid it.
You did very well trying to avoid it. But for that 6-week journey, it was about picking up pieces, recollecting, reimagining what life could be like. And so I went back home and talked to Emily about a move to Bali, as many of you do. As many of you, I mean, I have a lot of friends from different parts of my life here. People who've come on pilgrimage with me, people that I've just met, green school families that are here, people, there's a group of energy workers in the room. There's no surprise about that either. I'll get to that in a second. You're looking to go home. You're looking for a new home at a very turbulent time. And something deep inside of you is calling you. And there are no coincidences. So within about a month, we sold our entire house, pulled the kids from school, sold everything down to a suitcase. This is a very common story for green school, maybe for all expats moving to Bali, because you can't bring much into the country. But for me, it was about chasing a dream, about rebooting my life with a sacred vision. You're that vision. What you do here for the community is that vision. And when Geshe Tenzin Zopa came here on pilgrimage, right away, you know what he called you? I think he pulled on your beard and called you medicine Buddha.
No, he pulled on my beard and said, "Oh, maybe I should have one of those." It was a bit longer then.
He did recognize you as medicine Buddha, though,
Mm.
which is very fitting. You know, Tjok Gde has a beautiful clinic at the heart of Ibah. He's got a beautiful clinic, and he's actually got a homeopathic alchemical laboratory. I mean, it is exactly why I called him the wizard. But the medicine Buddha at the center of the mandala is the Buddha of healing transformation. And I put myself in Tjok's hand as his patient, you know, to heal my body, but also to restart my life. So I have so much gratitude. And I feel honestly that this is just the beginning. You know, Tjok Gde and I will talk a little bit about a pilgrimage that we just came home from. I want to save that to the end. A number of you were on that trip, and that trip is about the spirit of Elixir returning with some new inspiration and restarting, recalibrating, realigning, returning to restart civilization. So this was all to say thank you to Tjok, to his family, to everybody here at Ibah that makes it so this just, you can feel the integrity with the land, the nature, the symbiosis with the spirits, the ancestors that are here. I wanted to thank some of my team that made this possible and some of the wisdom keepers that are here. They're beautiful people in this room. Some of them are in the book. Like Made Griawan is a great artist. He actually produced a beautiful wooden block chop that we're going to use to sign the books with. Where is Made?
Monday.
Made. Let's stand up, Made.
Ah,
He's a holder of 1,000-year-old tradition called Batuan. 1,000-year-old tradition that comes through the generations. He's the holder of it. And every time I see Made, even though he's an exquisite painter and also someone who's an innovator, someone who holds the lineage but also innovates, he's one of the sweetest. His smile just radiates. And that's the hallmark of someone who has the elixir. You want to just be with them. They have some magical capability, prowess. They exhibit some good quality, what Geshe Tenzin Zobo would call good qualities. So just in terms of thanking people, I want to thank you. Also want to thank anybody who's joining us online and anybody who's joining online that will happen in the future, given the technology, how it goes these days. You have to think in 3 dimensions. You have to think ahead of time. Somebody a year from now might find their way, and there would be no coincidence there either. So I was saying that Return with Elixir is about our journey. It's about movements. Pilgrimage is about movements. And during this 5-year period of writing, it was about noticing patterns, similarities, cross-referencing maps. I started to notice that the esoteric traditions, whether they came from Greece or India, if you looked at them through a mythopoetic eye, that is a non-rational, non-linear. If you looked at it through the dream time, you started to see that there was something very similar about what they were all saying. So one of the maps is the cosmological map. One of the maps that I integrated was the Campbellian map, Joseph Campbell, the mythologist. Another one was the psychological map of Jung. And the final map was the Vajrayana map, which is the Tibetan tantric map. And I started to see that they are all, in a way, a kind of pilgrimage They all spoke to this idea of going on a journey. So that's one layer of the book, is sort of map making or quilt making. Another layer of the book is my own personal trial and sort of trial and tribulation, you know, my stumbling through this series of sometimes very uncanny and bewildering circumstances. You know, it's easy to look back on 5 years and say that it's all clear now and write it in a coherent book, but while you're living it, I mean, there were so many times Emily and I were so lost, really, really lost. Remember one time I looked at Emily and we were in Nyambu, more than a year after being here in Bali. You know, the life of my 25-year career in New York was long gone, washed away. And I had a lot of promise about landing in Bali that didn't manifest right away. You think you're going to return with the elixir like that, but life has something to teach you. And sometimes that teaching is very difficult. I remember sitting there in Nyambu, and, you know, there's Ellie there, Karsten, people that are familiar with me, you know, and they know the moments of despair. They know the moments of uncertainty, and the moments of doubt that keep you up at night. What have you done? What have you done to your children? What have you done with your life? Wasn't it a perfectly good life? You're set up in Manhattan, you have a house, you have a career, you have a reputation, you have an income stream. What more were you looking for? Part of what happened was I started listening to something deeper inside of me, which I now refer to as the soul. Again, it doesn't speak in rational terms. And it doesn't speak with much clarity sometimes. Sometimes it speaks in metaphor. Sometimes it speaks in synchronicity. Sometimes it speaks in intuition. Sometimes it speaks in nonsense and actually misguides you so that you learn a lesson and then rewrite yourself. But I remember that day in Nyambu with Emily. Both of us were just in tears. Yeah, but at least we were in tears together. So these are what the maps are about. They're not straightforward. And of course, a map is just a representation. It's not the actual terrain. But what I'm saying is in the book, there are these 4 maps, and then there was the life experience. Anyway, one of the other things about the book is that I was trying to answer this question about where we are as a civilization. And that's one starting place I want to just prime for all of us in our consideration, those that are joining here at Ibah, those that are joining on live, those that might stumble upon it by way of synchronicity. Every major culture before the industrialized world, whether it be Mesopotamia, whether it be the Egypt, Greece, you go into China, India, you go all the way to Mesoamerica. Our ancestors were all sky gazers. And they all looked up and they all discovered the same thing. They were great collators of patterns. And over their generations, they discovered that there was a long cycle of time. And that's something that the industrialized civilization has forgotten. Graham Hancock, those of you that know him, is famous for saying, he's an ancient civilization researcher, is famous for saying, we are a culture with amnesia. And we are now just waking up. And of course, Graham Hancock's contribution is that his central thesis, since he was a young writer or author in Ethiopia, journalist, was that our current narrative about civilization is misguided, that somehow hunter-gatherers overnight became great temple builders. To this day, we have no rational explanation for how to build a pyramid, but suddenly we're led to believe that 5,000 years ago, people that were herding cattle or herding goats or just beginning to cultivate the land also built absolutely astronomically precise temples. His central thesis is that about 1,200 years ago, there was an ice age, which then gives us all the common myths about deluge, all the flood myths. Actually, they're not myths. They're human beings trying to recount a similar story. But in any event, this flood myth, which is based on a comet impact, wipes out a common ancestor lost in time. And that these common ancestors had absolutely brilliant ideas. So this idea that we have now from Darwin that we were like primitive apes moving in a linear, that's very much a right brain analysis of our situation. But those that had the mythic eye understood that life and time was cyclic. And so these great civilizations across the planet knew that there was a long cycle of time guided by the stars, and that just like a clock, this cycle lasted on order of 24,000 years. And in the increments of a clock were the rise and fall of civilizations. And as the clock sort of went from 12 to 6, if you will, civilization and consciousness devolved, lost its potency, until we arrived somewhere at 6 o'clock, 12,000-year period of a great descent. Until where we might have started at the apex is called Satya Yuga, according to the Vedic system. A time of truth, a time of harmony, a time of incredible expansion of consciousness. And where we devolve to over time is a time of disharmony, a time of war, a time of fragmentation, a time of debauchery, a time of disconnection. So much so that we've become so centrally preoccupied with matter that we've forgotten that we're spiritual beings. And we have actually forgotten, this is a classic case, that we have more than one life to live. If you ask anyone on the street in any culture at this point, unless they have a spiritual thread that runs through their bones, they will say that we are just matter, we are just the brain. Once the electric activity in the brain ceases, the body dies, the soul, there's no soul, there's no consciousness. This is a classic depiction of the devolution of where we are in the long cycle. And when I got to that point of that cycle, I started to put 2 and 2 together, that what we're seeing in terms of symptoms across the planet are actually explained by this meta-narrative. And what do I mean by that? I mean, every system is failing right now. And you can look at them one by one. And many of you are more astute than me in any of these one disciplines, but if you look at the financial system, you know that it's based on fiat and it's like a deck of cards ready to collapse. Right? And you can feel the tremors. And every time it starts to wiggle a little bit, we just pump it full of air. And the most logical among us know that that balloon is just about to burst. But that's just one discipline. The medical industry is another. You know, how many of you have been through industrialized medicine because of a lump that you found, or something because of the food, the very food that you eat makes you sick? You know, the other day I found out that Monsanto was actually owned by Bayer. And this is 6 o'clock madness. You see, the very company that's responsible for selling the so-called cure is also responsible for engineering the disease. And that's just one example of the tail end of civilization, where every industry has been absolutely infiltrated by corrupt greed and blindness, short-sightedness. You move along to agriculture, it's the same thing. Tjok Gde is responsible, and Akiko-san, who's importing this beautiful system from Japan, there is a attempt to bring a more natural approach back from and to undermine the big agra complex, which is hell-bent on ownership. It owns the seeds, and it has genetically modified the seeds in such a way to protect it as a copyright, if I'm understanding that correct, which is just diabolical. And this is just another example. And you can go through one by one, the banking industry, the medical industry, the agricultural industry, the energy industry, governments, whether they're left or right, how many of them been bought off, what's going on behind closed doors. Do we really believe that there was a pandemic that was just innocently, that some wet market bat started the pandemic? So we're talking about the darker side of human nature. And we're talking about a time that we're living in that calls upon us to have what's called a great reckoning. And the great reckoning is presented in every spiritual text. It's presented slightly differently. Sometimes it's presented in prophecy, sometimes in mythology. But all the spiritual cultures, or what I call the wisdom keepers of every culture, know one thing, that the time we're living in right now is a great turning of the ages. It is the turning from darkness towards what's called the Great Ascent. One great researcher named Ubud Mishra wrote a book called The Yuga Shift. He spent many, many years revising the calculations of the long 24,000-year cycle. And what he discovered was March 21, 2005 was the actual turning of the Dark Age, the Kali Yuga, into the Dwapara Yuga, what's called from the Bronze to the Iron Age. Is that right? Iron to Bronze Age. So when I was researching this, I figured this is really important information. Why is it important? Because so often we get very consumed with the trees and forget the forest. And that actually this message is a very powerful and optimistic message because of two reasons. First and foremost, if everything is cyclic, if you just study your history, what can you do? Anybody? Why do they want us to study our history? Anybody out there? If you study your history, you can unlock a pattern. If you can unlock a pattern, you can break a cycle. This is very powerful. The second thing is it's optimistic because in a way, we, those of us here right now, those of us that just prayed in a temple, those of us that are ascending to a mountaintop monastery like Rachen, those of you that are doing your energy medicine and your energy workshops, and those of you that are coaches, and those of you that are just transforming yourself and coming to Bali because you're catching an intuition that now is the time for some very deep inner work. Those of you that have been caught off guard by the patterns of corruption, but know that in your soul there is a way through. None of this is coincidence. It's all happening because consciousness is undergoing right now a sea change. And I find that to be so optimistic because we may be the first generation on the first leg of a journey of ascension. And what an opportunity that is for us. What a great opportunity. And those of you that have kids, what a great responsibility. That this map asks us to consider not just our single life, but what we do now is the foundation for future generations to come. And I find that an incredible reframe. Yes, there's incredible darkness. Yes, there's incredible challenges. Yes, there's real corruption. that feels impenetrable. I've had numerous talks with Tjok Gde about Bali and Bali's ecosystem collapse and Bali's loss of its traditions and its sacred tirta being flooded with pollution and the overdevelopment. Yes, sometimes it's dire. But really the elixir message is asking us to consider in the long cycle, of course, these are symptoms. And we have an opportunity to find the source of the symptom. And these maps are very, very useful. So the one map is a celestial map of 24,000 year cycle that finds ourselves at 6 o'clock on the cusp of a turning towards an ascension towards the light. So just hold that for me. That's one pilgrimage, what I call the pilgrimage of the cosmos. Another pilgrimage is Campbell's pilgrimage, which is the pilgrimage of meaning, that you yourself are on a pilgrimage that's not linear, but it's cyclic. It's also cyclic. It's what's described as an outbound journey, then a return. Every hero leaves home, undergoes initiation, is met by a great trial. And out of that trial, something is born within them. Some developmental milestone is reached. Some gift is earned because of trial that then engenders them, empowers them, renders them useful to the larger community. And so on that back end journey, they are bringing forth a boon. And Campbell, the mythologist, broke that into many stages, which are delineated in the book. But the last stage is the title of the book, Return with Elixir. No trial, no elixir. No trial, no treasure. So in our culture, and I speak for myself here, when I'm up there in the sum, I want a hot shower. And Emily knows that I start to starve, and my prayers in the gompa, in the temple, they start to be about lamb chops or something like that. I'll be perfectly honest with you. 5 days, 5 days walking up, and then you get up there and it's freezing cold, and you haven't had a shower in days, and you've been eating, I don't know, some kind of something made of spelt. Yeah, suddenly in the gompa, your prayers are my prayers. I know Akiko-san, she's different. She's a different kind of human being. She's up there, very powerful with her meditation. She comes from Japan. She's samurai. But me, I'm not built that way. Our culture tends to lean towards comfort, sanitizing the world, making it workable, making it nice, and embellishing it, and yet it deprives us of the growth opportunity. And this is what Campbell was talking about, is that you have to leave your comfort. And so many of you are coaches. This is what you teach your clients. Basically, you are developing rapport and trust so that you can lead them to what's called their edge, their working edge. Now, if you go too far, you risk injury. But if you always stay comfortable, there's no growth. So that in there is one of the hallmarks of the Campbellian wisdom. The outbound journey takes you to a place that you have no capacity to know, to operate, to function, to draw on your typical resource. And so it's stretching you. It's actually neurologically stretching you, but it's spiritually stretching you too. You have to extend into the chaos. And only there, Campbell was famous for saying, the cave that you fear entering holds the treasure you seek. So beautiful. So beautiful. But despite all the survival instincts that wants to keep you home, it's the higher intelligence of consciousness that wants you to embark on a journey past the comfort zone, past the shire, past the predictable, past the certain, past the comfort. Because there in that territory, yes, you will be assailed, but you will also discover. And that which you discover that's new, you then start to very slowly integrate on your return journey. So somebody asked me, one of my colleagues asked me, does everybody have to move to Bali? No, please don't move to Bali, okay? Please don't move to Bali. But please go on a journey. Now, does that journey have to take you outside of your neighborhood? It could. But then the third map comes in, and that's Jung. And the journey he's talking about is not an outward journey. His journey is the outward inwards. In other words, there's two movements. In the cosmological map, there's a descent followed by an ascent. In the Campbellian map, there's an outward bound journey that then pivots and returns home. In the Jungian journey, there's an inward movement before there's an outward movement. This is pivotal. I'm just giving you a little flavor of these maps, and then we'll come back to Tjok Gde, who's being so patient with me. The inner journey delineated by Jung was really a novelty for me in this book. You know, I've spent 20-some years studying Tibetan Buddhism, but somewhere along the line, I was offering a course, a 2-year course in Tibetan Buddhism. And I was in Greece, where my mom lives, on an island called Ithaca. It's actually where Homer likely wrote the Odyssey. And I just had this very strong, we were sitting in this beautiful old church that sat on top the ruins of the Odysseus Palace. It's incredible, incredible. And I had a very powerful urge there, strong intuition, that I had to break the traditional mold. I couldn't just teach Tibetan Buddhism. I needed to start to integrate and to weave and to have dialogues and to create a tapestry and to create networks and to create relationships, so that people of differences and different communities could start to sense their commonality. And there was something very, very important to me about starting to include mythology. And something about Jung was just knocking on the door, although I never had studied Jung. And Jung's an incredible character. I mean, he lives a life where, in essence, he turns himself over to his unconscious. He's somebody that was willing to make an inner journey and to surrender his right brain intellect. He was a behemoth of an intellect, but he was willing to suspend that and turn himself over to dreams, to intuitions, to synchronicities, to powerful energies, to visions. And the red book that he produced is some 3 to 4 year odyssey of his, where he basically goes off grid. He basically has a crisis of spirit, what we would call a dark night of the soul, confrontation with the unconscious, he calls it. In a psychoanalytic interpretation, he touched psychosis. He played on the razor's edge of psychosis for years. And what he was doing there was he was risking it all in order to make a discovery with something much deeper, what he ended up calling the universal archetypes of the collective unconscious, where there is a huge database that doesn't come from one life. There's a huge database of wisdom that doesn't come from just a singular life with you and your tiny little hereditary tree. It is the sum total of the collective, of the psyche, of the human experience, a repository. And he was dipping his toe in, and he was, and it was speaking to him. The mind, the big mind, was speaking to him. Now, it doesn't speak linearly. It doesn't speak in the language of reason. It comes in potent images, in archetypes, in symbols, in synchronicities, in dreams and intuitions. And he was a great interpreter. And in a way, on my journey, I started to listen. I started to listen to dreams. I started to listen to intuitions. I started to see tea leaves coming and started to try to make meaning of them. And in a way, it was leading me on this journey, which is sort of captured in the book. One archetype in particular was this idea of Shaiva Buddha. Now, I won't talk too much about it. I'll leave just a kind of a detective clue in the hopes that you buy the book and read it. But the Shaiva Buddha is an archetype that emerged unbeknownst to me. It's a very compelling storyline in the book that shows that because of the timing that we all share, we may also share messages from the one mind. And Made Griwan is an example of this because he also had a Shaiva Buddha experience. Now, he may come from a culture that understood that and interpreted it in one way. For me, it was just an intuition of bringing two traditions together. I had a vision on top of the Borobudur mandala that my teacher, a Vajrayana master, a tantric master from the Buddhist side, would be doing a joint ceremony at the top of a mandala, which is one of the most potent images of symbiosis and union, of the union of opposites, Jung would say. He wasn't there alone. He was in dialogue, in consort with a Javanese tantric master of the innate land. They were doing something there together. They were bringing two traditions together. And I went on a kind of detective story trying to ask wisdom keepers, what was all this about? Well, it turns out I wasn't the only one who had this vision. And that actually, that vision is actually a potent part of a prophecy. And so we dug into the prophecy. And lo and behold, what does the prophecy reveal? It reveals exactly this thing about the cosmic clock, that there are no coincidences. We are living in a time now where this concept, this notion, this archetype of union is really, really powerful and potent. What are some of the unions that are potent right now? Well, here's one: science and spirit. Here's another one: reason and intuition. Here's another one: masculine and feminine. It's no surprise right now, for example, that of the deities that are up, the mother is returning. She is on the cover of my book, the mother of all Buddhas. Vajrayogini is the tantric mother. Tara in its most ecstatic, so ecstatic with nipples hard that, if you're not initiated, you might get the wrong idea. It's just dancing on that razor's edge. The time is now for this kind of marshaling of a tremendous power and force that is based on integrity, to cut through all the corruption, to cut through the delusion. That's what Vajrayogini represents. She has teeth and power. She's cultivated tremendous power. She's leading us. It's powerful, very powerful. Those of you that's this somehow synchronistic group of energy workers that wound up. Yeah, you guys are amazing. You guys are Aquarian energy. You are on the frontier of the new age that's coming in, and with it comes a new archetype, and with it comes a new energy, and with it comes a new signature. And one of them is energy, the return to powerful natural medicines, energy work, channels, winds, drops. We are like nuclear factories. We can create health through mind and breath and with a little magic. We can create the time that we're heading into. The natural medicine movement and the energy movement are going to take off because they are completely consistent with the new energy of the new civilization that's coming in. What Tjok Gde does, he is a revolutionary, he is a pioneer, he's on the vanguard. What Akiko-san is doing, bringing in these, going back to old methods and regenerating the land, is an archetype of the Aquarian age that's coming in. But in order to really make good on that, you also have to heed what Jung was talking about, which is first do your inner journey, clean up the stream. The pollution of the stream that's out there is only polluted because of the confusion in here. And it will be a very small number of wisdom keepers like Geshe Tenzin Zopa and Tjok Gde, Tjok Gde's father. At first, it's just a few people that understand, that hold on to the sacred knowledge about the inner journey and the inner alchemy. But according to the principles of cosmology, the age that we're now slowly bleeding into, the ordinary people like you and I will begin to understand these things. We will need to have humility and we'll need to learn them, but this will become our new language. And we will have tremendous regeneration. We will have tremendous longevity. We have the chance at greater capacity for harmony with leadership in government. But it all begins with a confrontation with the evils inside of us. That's what Jung was saying. Jung's prediction, he was a very astute student of astrology. He knew about the long cycle, and he knew that we were transitioning from what's called the Piscean age into the Aquarian age. And he knew those ages, those increments are somewhere on the order of 2,150 years. So that's when the second hand of the clock ticks every 2,100 years until it makes a full rotation of 24,000 years. Every 2,150 years is a new civilization, is a new archetypal energy, and we are on the cusp of that. And Jung saw that the first 500 years will be very, very challenging. And that's our time. Yes, we're crossing over, but this is a time of getting honest and doing very deep work and sorting through our blind spots and sorting through our blindness and taking responsibility. Even while the majority or the masses are unwilling, each of you in this room happen to have that as an option. And I encourage you to take it as your soul meaning-making opportunity. I will be the one to start to be the first generation to take some measure of responsibility for my instincts, to clean up my own backyard so that I can make way for a garden for the future. That is like the Bodhisattva vow. That's an incredible thing to do. And both Campbell and Jung knew this, that would give you and give us so much meaning. Doesn't matter if you're opening a restaurant like my friend Todd. You know, Todd is an amazing character. He's on a journey. I have conversations with him and I can feel the power of what it is like to go inside and sort through the muck and mire. It doesn't matter what you do outwardly. As long as you do it with integrity, you are returning with elixir. You are paying it forward. You are coming back into the world, a decent human being, which the world, don't ever minimize that. It's a huge, huge thing. It's one of the greatest teachings my teacher Geshe Tenzin Zopa reiterates over and over and over again. Don't worry about the results, just live in virtue. Don't worry about the results, just if I could live that, if I could really live that, I would be proud of myself. I honestly slip every single day. But just live in virtue, and the rest, because it's a cycle, the rest will unfold as it should. The final pilgrimage I'll talk about, Tjok Gde has been so patient, so have you, is the Tibetan map. So we've got the long cycle of the cosmology, which is about descent and ascent. We've got the outward bound and the inward bound journey of Campbell's monomyth. We have the inward to go outward movement of the Jungian model, and then we have the secret tantric, which is again another pilgrimage. This one is about inner energy that was kept secret for thousands of years, which is only now, according to the Dalai Lama. Why is the Dalai Lama teaching the Kala Chakra? You know, the Dalai Lama is the 14th iteration, the incarnation of the deity Avalokiteshvara, Chenrezig, the god or the deity of compassion. He's the 14th iteration. He is the holder of this lineage of an empowerment called the Kala Chakra vision. And within this Kala Chakra Tantra, this powerful imagery, there is a prophecy called the Shambhala prophecy. And again, there you will find this understanding that now is the time, that we've lived through the dark age and now is the time for what is called the return of the king. And who is that king? It's not some monarch, it's not some president, it's not some prime minister, it's you. It's you. Aligned in your virtue, you are the king and queen that's returning to save the world. And how do you return? You don't just return with your mind in the tantric vision. You actually transform your body into a rainbow. You see that your body is an actual palace. You live in a mandala. Your voice and vibration are mantra. Everything that you meet in this vision is for your teaching and for your embellishment. Even the catastrophes. And this is why Geshe Tenzin Zopa is so buoyant. This is why the Dalai Lama is so buoyant. They don't succumb to despair because they have the elixir inside that colors their perception in just a way that even the catastrophes and the crises are opportunities. Boom, just like that. Boom, just like that. You know, if I get a phone call as a therapist, you know, just somebody texted me or emailed me the other day with a huge story about how crisis and you know, symptoms over at the wazoo and it's all despairing and I also don't have any money and I can't pay and I do this and everybody's against me, the whole thing, and my body just like contracts. But someone like Geshe Tenzin Zopa, who sees it from the perspective of the mandala, has great compassion that is unwavering and actually keeps them buoyant. Understanding this, that from their point of view, that suffering is real, but from your point of view, you are bliss. Everything is bliss. Everything is joy. Amazing. And my wife Emily's laughing right now because she's like, that's not you. And it's not. But I would like it to be. I would like it to be. If I can go to my deathbed having reverse engineered at least some portion of my life so that I could taste the unwavering joy that is my birthright and is my actual innate chemistry. If I could do that, that would be worth everything for me. And that's what the Tibetan pilgrimage, the tantric pilgrimage is about. You know, everybody's done massage and everybody's done acupuncture. Your body's filled with meridians and knows about the chakra system and the channels. There is a very sacred and secret technology about accessing the drops of elixir that are stationed at different hubs and drawing them from below and from above until they meet like sacred union at the heart. And there, the two drops, red and white, meet with a third drop in what's called the Trimurti, the Triveni. The three become one. The red drop, the white drop, and the blue drop. The drop of the seed of your mother, the drop of the seed of your father, and the drop of your own innate bliss Buddha nature. And when they come together, you have an awakening. And the world then becomes pure. You see it as it really is beyond your distortion. And the contaminants that distort it are transformed. And this is what Tjok Gde teaches, and this is what the tantric lineages teach. The transformation of base instincts, fear and aggression and clinging into joy and wisdom and compassion. And that's a pilgrimage, a descent and an ascent until there's a sacred union at the heart. And that's not the end of the story. Then you become an avatar. Will you feel the divine pride that you are a divinity in your own mandala with the impetus to try to make some positive impact on the world? Will you have that amount of dignity and self-respect and feel that inclination? And that's what the return with the elixir is from the Tibetan point of view, that all of us, hidden inside all of us, is a deity, that actually what we are is deity. And that's so far-fetched, I know, for those of us that are still consumed by the one life perspective of rationalist, materialist paradigm. But for those that have reached the sanctums and the safe havens of the wisdom keepers of every tradition, especially the esoteric traditions, whether they come from Egypt or Greece or Mesoamerica, or Bali, or India, or China. They are all saying the same thing. Go on a journey, transform the energy, and remember that you're a divinity, and then come back home at a pivotal time in civilization. Take that vow. It's called the Bodhisattva vow. And I won't say too much about that more. You can read about that in the book. But that's the stamp and seal that the Lama gives you, the Guru gives you, that encourages you to make even the most mundane activities, whether it's making dinner for your kids or going to work. If you see yourself as deity, driven by this impetus, then whatever it is that you do is generating a positive tsunami of positivity. And there you fulfill your birthright. You make good on what you're capable of doing. Okay, so that's a little taste of the book. Those are the maps. That's a bit of the journey. Of course, the journey for me is still stumbling and knocking my head up against the wall and having Emily correct me. I thought maybe I would maybe read one little section of it, and then we could talk about our pilgrimage. You want to read it? You want me to read it a little section?
Yes.
Are you bored?
Please.
What I'd love at dinner when we go to dinner would be great if everybody shares a little bit about their journey, because it would not surprise me in the least bit that everybody's story is incredible. That actually you're sitting next to somebody who has something incredible to tell you about their journey. Does anyone need to do a wee? It's, my teacher calls it a free pee zone. Just get up and go. So you'll have to forgive me because I'm dyslexic, so I don't know how this is going to go. So this is chapter 10, called the Return, Bestowing the Boon. And the subtitle of this chapter is called Sacred Island Hopping. The early morning sun steadily creeps like a centipede over the rolling hills in the east, sending a kiss of tangerine light while the South Sea breeze keeps us refreshingly cool. Perched high on a bluff overlooking the north, we're greeted by the glorious expanse of Afalis Bay, with its surrounding mountains stretching like two giant arms in either direction, circling round to form a generous embrace, covered in a blanket of dense pine that descends right down to the waterline. Beyond the bay is the island of Lefkada, and the mix of turquoise and midnight blue that distinguishes the shallows from the depths of the Ionian Sea. This is not Bali, but another mystical island, Ithaca, in Greece, my second home. Emily and I have hiked up here on the morning walk to one of my favorite places, my mother's home. Situated on a nearby cliff facing Afalis and surrounded by an orchard of 300-year-old olive trees, it's not more than 20 minutes walk from here, along an ancient cobblestone path built by the Venetians over 500 years ago. We've come up here on pilgrimage to the archaeological site where Homer's school once stood for a special ritual. This is where, synchronistically, years earlier, I listened to my soul and changed the direction on a dime to live a mythological life. The ruins of a Hellenistic church serve as a ceremonial, intact inner sanctum and stand like a sentinel keeping watch over the centuries. poised halfway between a mountaintop village called Exogi and the Ionian Sea. Exogi, by the way, it translates as beyond the world. And that's what it feels like up here at my brother's house, where you can touch the clouds. The roof of the church where Emily and I sit is gone, but the small hand-hewn stones that form its walls have stood the test of time. And you can catch a glimpse of the bay below through one of its portals facing north. A perfect photograph in this window frame captures the timeless view of 1,000 lost words of awe. There's also an altar there on this rooftop, on this roofless chamber. Perhaps it was used to make offerings to Demeter, the goddess of grain, before the second hand of the great year made its incremental shift, causing the world to transition from the Hellenistic to the Christian period. At some point, like a sea's changing tide, the Virgin Mary replaced the goddess, but no less venerated. Today, we've set up a statue of the Indo-Tibetan green Tara, this deity here, in her place, arrange offerings of harvested olive branches from my mother's house and wild prickly mint and fragrant local lavender collected along the way. We set out the traditional 7 water bowls in the Tibetan style and made 3 prostrations with our bellies and foreheads, meeting the smooth stone below us with its ancient Greek inscriptions that to our minds remain undeciphered. It's the same divine mother appearing in different guises over the aeons, the universal archetype of the maternal unconditional love manifesting in various cultural forms throughout the epic motion of the stars. To the ordinary eye, this is blasphemy, but to the esoteric, they're all one. Emily and I have much to celebrate and more blessings to request of the mother. So this chapter goes on and talks about our using my mother's house in Ithaca as a way station en route to Bali. And it's just a micro pilgrimage to this beautiful place. This is the temple, the church that stands above the palace of Odysseus. And I go on to say that just there in clear sight, in plain sight, there's the old Hellenistic church, but under it is this even older palace. And I use it as a metaphor to describe that within each of us, there's something much older, there's something much brighter, something much more capable, like an acorn, like a pearl in the oyster, I call it. And it's for us to go find. That is the journey. So with that, I want to just, again, come back to Tjok Gde. He's been so patient, and all of you who've been so patient.
I'm enjoying this.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to transition a little bit and share about another pilgrimage, since the book is filled with pilgrimages, with the one that we just took with my teacher, Geshe Tenzin Zopa. What I wanted to say, and then I'll actually just encourage Tjok to share his own experience, but my teacher, Geshe Tenzin Zopa, was born and raised in a very small rural community in the Himalayas in Nepal, the high peaks of Nepal, close to Tibet. He was a poor son, several siblings. His father was a farmer. And there's a long legacy and story about him and his commitment and his devotion to what's called a Mahasiddha, a mountain-dwelling adept, psychonaut. His teacher lived in a mountaintop above his village, and at the age of 6 and 7, he wanted to climb up there, and his parents kept pulling him back and asking him to, go into the fields, and his inclination was very strong to want to ascend the mountain to be with this revered Lama teacher. And he was so insistent that eventually his father conceded, in around 9, something around 9 or 10, he made his way up there and connected with the Lama. And there are pictures of him around this age when he's no more older than my boy Bodhi, playing and laying in the lap of this great Lama who spent 25 years in solitary mountain retreat. His practice in this mountain retreat was the compassion practice. So in a way, all his devotion to opening his heart was for people like you and I, even though he would never meet us. His practice was for us, which I think is so compelling, so powerful. Anyway, we're high up on that mountain in that valley, which is considered a Baal. In the Tibetan word for Baal is hidden land. It's a land that is sort of a secret enclave of power. It's where great meditators would go and meditate. And also great meditators like Padmasambhava and Milarepa, these advanced yogis, they also hid treasures in amongst the land. And the land is imbued with a kind of awakening potential, if you will. And I think we feel that every time we go up there. There's something, despite what happens to your body or my body, the fatigue and the malnourishment, there's something very palpable about the magnetism of the environment. It's very conducive. The veil is very thin there, is one way of describing it. Realization is within hand. Meditation comes naturally, even if you're not in seated meditation, just sitting on one of those hills there, having a snack of potatoes en route to another monastery. There's something exquisite about the high altitude and the serenity and the simplicity. Anyway, as a result of the visions of his master and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, my teacher was put in charge of building and manifesting a large stupa there that should stand 80 feet tall, facing Tibet. And it should last 1,000 years. And it should be imbued with mantras and vibration. And in the course of his visioning, he said that the inner sanctum of this temple should be the medicine Buddha. And he called the stupa the World Peace Stupa. And all of these visions come together, and slowly that over time, money is being collected and energy is being invested, and different kinds of people from different kinds of cultural backgrounds are coming, and the locals are helping. And in a very remote place, it's almost impossible to conceive of how bricks and mortar and cement and all the rest of it and the mantras and everything can get up there, but it is well on its way. Small group of us got to go there last week to see the progress of the World Peace Stupa, and I was very much overcome with this idea of the cosmic clock. Again, that we are living in a time where we're in transition, and such a building, such a monument, will last 1,000 years. That means it will be a symbol of peace, harmony, and the medicinal quality that is our birthright. It should be its signature well into the Aquarian age. And so I was very, very happy to invite a few close friends that represent people that I think are, in a way, already well on their way in their elixir journey. What these people are doing, many more of you are also doing this, is you already have tapped this bodhisattva spirit, this wish or inclination to make some offering or contribution. But you're doing it in such a way where the signature is aligned with the incoming age. So for example, Akiko's Saisei project, which is about regenerating the land and going back in order to go forward, going back and finding some sacred wisdom that will help us in our time of degeneration. As Tjok Gde's father eloquently put, in so few words, he encapsulated the whole thing, actually. He was saying we were living in a time of regeneration, and that there's this spirit within us that is our opportunity to cease. So there was a number of us up there, Matthew with his project, his film project. I mean, film is an incredible thing. You have a filmmaker up there who has committed his whole life, literally, to telling a better story, to putting out in the channels that are so clogged with meanness, a better story about usness, which I bow to him for that. Incredible. And right down the line, everybody had a sacred purpose. Everybody has a sacred offering. Tjok Gde and Emily and Erica and all these people. Anyway, so I wanted to give Tjok Gde a chance to ramble a little bit. You guys have heard enough from me and my silly tongue. Tell us a little bit, my brother.
Yeah. Give it up. Wow, no pressure.
Oh,
There you go. First, I'd like to say thank you for that incredible journey. And, you know, I think you use the word integrity to sum up one of the prerequisites for crossing the threshold. Yeah. And I can just say, you know, I just opened the paper, you know, what was it, 2 days ago, you know, coming back to Bali from Kathmandu after having spent, it would have been 12 days, yeah, in the Bale, in the Sum, and the Upper Sum Valley. I think that the first news we got was about the latest corruption case in Indonesia. The Supreme Court, head of the Supreme Court, just got done for 920 billion rupiah in hard cash and gold bars in his house. So we came out of, I was like, I mean, how much money do you need, huh? I don't even know what that is in dollars. It's a lot of dollars. It sounds better in rupiah though. Billions. But it's interesting, you know. I wasn't fazed, you know. It didn't affect me so much. It was just sort of like, yeah, this is the time. This is the time we're in. We came out of basically a portal, an interdimensional portal, I would describe it as. A place, we crossed a bridge after Jagat and we saw no more, not even a motorcycle. We went further on and the electricity got a bit less. Our guide said, when the donkeys come past, stay to your right, I think it is, or stay to whatever side the cliff is on so that they don't kick you off the cliff. Because that's 1,000, what is it, foot or I've forgotten now. Was it feet or meters? And we drove forward. And I think one of the things that you felt on this kind of journey, and I've been on a lot of pilgrimages. In Bali, we call them Tirtha Yatra. Yatra is a pilgrimage. Tirtha means holy water. You know, most of my pilgrimages have been about collecting holy water. When we have a big ceremony here, we go, we retrace the footsteps of our ancestors. We go back to Java, we go to Lombok, we go all over the place, collecting elixir, collecting tirtha. Tirtha, elixir, it's basically the same meaning. Tirtha on one side means holy water, but on the other side it means essence, or it means any object, person, or place which has the ability to transform you spiritually in a benevolent way. Yeah. So I've been up mountains, I've been up volcanoes, into valleys, but I had this was it was the most challenging thing I've ever done. Yeah, because I saw it as we kept going north. I think it was north, yeah, northeast. You lose direction. All you see are the snow-capped Himalayas towering on either side, and you feel how small you are. I thought Gunung Agung was big. This was another, a whole other, you know, dimension. And life and yourself it's like whittling a stick. I used to like to do that as a kid. I'm still obsessed with knives. I know some people are going to laugh in the room. But it was you and the life around you was whittled back to its essence. Yeah. To a point where you can't really hide anymore. And that's what integrity is. And I think if there's one thing I can say about Miles is his level of integrity, because not many people looked at him several times, especially when the what did Geshe-la call them? The mountain goats. He gave a tar. The tar kicked rocks down like that big that missed your boys by a meter or so, and missed Norbu by less than a meter. And these are rocks that would have cracked your skull and sent you down the valley. Yeah. You were on the edge. You were on the edge, and not many people have. It's not the honor of doing that. It's the integrity of being able to hold that space. And you and Geshe-la and Emily, and I think all of us as a group, but you know, most of us, some of us, myself included, went into it not really knowing what was going to happen. But I think basically life's essence was whittled back to its very, very fundamentals. And we saw that in the life up there. As we kept going forward, the electricity wires disappeared. We were back. We were in a land that still held. You know, I often call Bali one of the last living mystery schools. I take that back now. Yeah. We were in the mystery school, the land of Tantra. And what's Tantra? It's alchemy. You can't survive in those places for very long without understanding alchemy. What is alchemy? Alchemy is the transformation of the base elements into the divine. And we have that saying in Bali, a very simple saying, Bhuta ya, Dewa ya. So Dewa is what you were talking about, is deity. So this is every human's birthright. You have the right to be a Dewa, to be a deity, but you also have the right to become a demon, if you like. You have both. Uttaya, Dewa, ya. So it was in those high upper reaches of the upper sum and being with the nuns that really pared back everything. And you felt the warmth and the compassion. Compassion and warmth feel very different in Bali. At 30 degrees, nice and humid, yeah. Then up there at 0 degrees, cold, dry winds. Compassion and warmth, they feel a little bit different, yeah. And one thing I can say for myself, you know, and perhaps to share this, and I don't mean to Baliize it, you know. I tend to do that. My dad likes to do that. Everything's about Bali. Everything comes back to Bali. Well, we're the coccyx of Asia. We're the end of the coccyx bone of Asia. East of here, Lombok, you have the Wallace Line, and that's Austronesia. We're the end of Asia here. But I did feel a very, very strong connection, yeah. And I've been to India several times, and I haven't felt the same. But in Nepal, especially up in the Tibetan regions, I felt a very strong strong connection to the essence and a lot of the roots of where we came from in Bali. And it's no coincidence that we are one of the keepers of Pura Gunung Lebah, which is this temple down here under the bridge, which is one of the places where Ida Resi Markandeya, the Rishi, came and did his yoga and healed his disciples who were dying in the waters here. And do you know where he came from? He came from somewhere around Nepal. So even the people, the mannerisms, this concept of Siwa Buddha, yeah, coming together of these two concepts, the inner and the outer, the inner ritual and the outer ritual, that was very, very, it was palpable there. Yeah, the connections, almost like an ancestral homecoming. So and like I say, you know, it was, yeah, it was like a scene out of Lord of the Rings. And we were the Fellowship of the Ring. And we weren't going to Mordor. We were coming out of it. Yeah. And we were heading to the higher realms, to the hidden valley, the Valley of Secrets. And you could feel that, interdimensional. And, but like any good Balinese, I brought back holy water. Wherever I could find it. I held the group up a couple of times, but they kept walking. It's all right. But we brought some back. And it was a deep honor actually to perform a puja at the World Peace Stupa on Galungan. And apparently the first ever non-Tibetan Buddhist, let alone Balinese. I don't think any Balinese have been up there. It's too cold and it's too hard to buy cigarettes. Yeah, it was a deep honor to do that, and I felt this sort of almost like a meridian connection, yeah. From those upper regions all the way down, and in the high places, yeah, life is whittled back to its essence, to what is really important, what is not important, you know. All the demons come to you, you know, the lamb chops, yeah, up in the Moon Monastery, freezing wind, the hot showers, the magnesium baths, the massages, yeah. But it's the most beautiful place to be. It's incredible, yeah. So it's an irony, you know. It shows you the irony of samsara, yeah. All those comforts, yeah. We love to be comfortable. When you pare them back and you see that in your own luggage, what you had to carry up there, what you didn't need, you know, so much you didn't need, yeah. And that's, yeah. What do they say? Pilgrimage is worth a year of study. 2-week pilgrimage is worth maybe years, yeah. And I think every pilgrimage opens you up to your internal cosmology. And I'm not even going to say I highly recommend it. Miles thinks I'm taking a group up there next year. I'll no, it would be the deepest honor to do that. I just hope that I have enough strength to do that again. But yeah, I think I don't know what else to say. I'm really lost for words actually tonight.
Mm.
Yeah, usually I'm pretty good. I can make something up on the spot, but I think you know, summing that up, you know, a pilgrimage to basically the end of the world. Someone who can hold that, I think reading his book, you can feel the integrity in that as well. And yeah, it's a deep honor to be to walk that path with you, Miles.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Emily and everyone who came, and all of you here. We are at cosmologically, astronomically, astrologically, we've passed through a very big gate on, you know, around the 20th of May, 25th. Whether you follow sidereal, Vedic, Western astrology, it doesn't matter actually. It was all very big. And I think as we go forward, the integrity, and integrity is an interesting word. It means integral, yeah, integrated, whole, same as healing in a way. In anything we do, whatever it is, whether it's very humble, whether it's talking to thousands of people, I think the more we go, the karmic acceleration is picking up more and more and more. Yeah. And yeah, understanding that, finding somebody who can actually talk about that cosmology from both an Eastern perspective and a Western perspective is very rare these days. And I think that's where Miles and I formed this fraternity. Yeah. As exploring both of those. And yeah, I can't say anything more more highly recommend his book without sounding like I'm trying to plug something. I get no commission, by the way. But yeah, we look forward to talking more about this. I think everyone's pretty hungry. Is everyone hungry? Yeah, I think dinner's ready. Leanne, book signing.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tjok Gde. Thank you so much. So I think just for book signing, I think those that are ready to go downstairs and stretch your legs, if you don't want to have a book, go have a little walk around and make your way down to the dinner, which is going to be a fantastic dinner. And if anybody would like a book, I'm going to sign them with Tjok Gde. Actually, it would be very nice to have Tjok Gde. Mate Griwan has prepared for us a Balinese wood stamp, which I think will be a very rare treat to have with the book.
Wow.
So Tjok will stamp it and I'll sign it and you can buy a book. We've got somebody here to help us if you haven't
Leanne.
Purchased one yet. But anyone else, feel free to stretch your legs, make your way down to the restaurant. And then, as I said, I think you're going to sit next to, is that Swami? Hey, brother, nice to see you. It'd be nice to just have a little chat with the so-called random people around you and talk about journeys or pilgrimages or where people are coming from. You'll undoubtedly hear some very inspiring and enlightening things from each other. So let me just thank Tjok Gde again for what a great ceremony we started out with. I mean, that was the magic. And the rest was just blah, 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 blah.
That was blah, blah, blah.
Okay, thank you, Sai, so much for coming.